On August 2nd, 2012, Square Enix released Dragon Quest X online to the world. Well, Japan, anyways. Yeah, they released it in Japan, and only in Japan. And it would stay a Japanese Wii exclusive for about a year or so before it started getting ported over to other platforms. Eventually, it would hit the Japanese Wii U, the Japanese PC, the Japanese 3DS, Japanese smartphones, Japanese Nintendo Switch, and the Japanese PS4. Notice a trend here? Outside of a very short-lived Chinese port on PC, the game has remained a Japanese exclusive for all this time. 10 years, ladies and gentlemen. During the 35th anniversary Dragon Quest special broadcast on May 27th, 2021, I was stunned to see the announcement of Dragon Quest X Offline, announced for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC. For a brief half a second or so, I thought the world would finally get to experience at least a hybrid of the incredible world of Dragon Quest X. And then my eyes glanced around the screen to see the words "not for international markets" or something like that, meaning Japanese exclusive. Again. And my heart sank, knowing the world would once again miss out on this great installment on the Dragon Quest series. Fast forward to September 15th, 2022, and the game has just been released in Japan. I quickly snagged a copy for myself to continue my long-standing tradition of playing through the Japanese version of, well, all Dragon Quest games. I thought that tradition was going to die with Dragon Quest XI, but it looks like it's here to stay, at least until Square Enix decides to release all Dragon Quest games outside Japan at the same time as they do in Japan. So here we are, Dragon Quest X Offline. As you can imagine, it has the same story found in the online version, which is precisely why this game exists. Square Enix wanted people who didn't like the online sort of components of 10 to experience the wonderful story of Dragon Quest X. The game begins in Iten, where you live with your sibling, a boy or girl you create at the onset of the game. You specify both the protagonist and your sibling by selecting skin tone, shape of the eyes, color of the hair, etc. Everything seems peaceful until Nelgil, at least that's how I think it's pronounced, Nelgil the Underlord, shows up one day unexpectedly and literally destroys everything, ruins your entire life. In the chaos that ensues, your sibling is teleported somewhere, and you pretty much die. And your soul ends up in one of 5 non-human tribes you select. An ogre, a dwarf, an elf, a puppet, or a wetling. These are the translated names Square Enix has used in the past, which is why I'm using them here, although they're quite a bit different than the Japanese originals. Once your character has been resurrected and cleared the starting area, they meet up with a wise sage who informs them that in order to break the seal to Nelgel's realm, they're going to need 10 emblems. Now, I'm not going to go into the full detail of the story because I don't want to spoil anything, but needless to say, you'll be spending a lot of time running all over the world, facing off countless enemies and boss encounters trying to collect these emblems. In essence, you'll have to traverse each continent twice to collect all the different emblems. The game isn't repetitive though, which you may be thinking it could be from what I just said, and especially when you think of Dragon Quest VII with, playing multiple areas multiple times, don't worry about that. Here the continents are rather large and they're broken up into 3 core sort of areas or sections. You have the starter area, the main city or the capital city, and then another secondary city. And of course there's hidden caves all over the place for you to explore. And pretty much all of the quests from the online version are present here, except with less emphasis on gestures, speech text, or photo mode. In the offline version, only gestures really remain. You can't text or take photos, so the quests have obviously been altered somewhat. But that being said, there are still 212 quests for you to complete, which will take a solid 80 hours or so when coupled with the main game. As for the main campaign itself, it lasts around 40 hours or so, give or take a bit. With regards to the gameplay, the core battle system is completely changed to closer match that of offline Dragon Quest games of the past. That is traditional turn-based system. Nothing to explain here, your standard Dragon Quest fare. There is a vocation or job system at play, or class system, reminiscent of previous games in the series such as 3, 6, 7, and 9, although here it's a little unique in how that it's handled. There are 14 classes available, although only available to the protagonist. The other characters who join you are locked to their primary classes, just like in Dragon Quest 8 and 9. 6 basic classes are available at the beginning of the game: Warrior, Priest, Mage, Martial Artist, Thief, and Minstrel, and 8 more advanced classes are unlocked as you progress and find specific class quests or meet specific criteria, such as raising class X to level 50 or higher. I won't spoil the advanced classes here, but they will be instantly familiar to anyone who has played Dragon Quest X Online. I should also mention that the level cap for version 1 of Dragon Quest X Offline is 70. So don't go expecting to grind to level 99 here, that's not going to happen. And speaking of grinding, I did a video showing how to power grind for those that are interested, so be sure to check it out. It'll be part of the Dragon Quest playlist here on YouTube. One of the biggest differences with Dragon Quest X Offline is that the party system from the online version has been completely reinvented. In the online version, you could play by yourself and rent out other playable characters when they weren't online. This would allow them to gain experience while not playing, while the person wasn't playing, and you would get them in your party. So you could actually use your friends in your party, which was really cool. In this version, the bar, which is where you used to rent your actual party, now allows you to input sort of like a friend code of sorts and challenge gate quests, but you don't actually control them. So in other words, it's like you enter these codes, you get these people as virtual party members, but then they like race off and do these other little like quests that you're not part of, and then you just get their spoils. So yeah, it's okay, but it's certainly not a substitute for having them join your party. So what happens instead? Well, instead you befriend 5 other playable characters throughout your journey. Each will join at a key moment in a particular story, and yes, the story is very much like Mega Man. You can decide which of the emblems you want to tackle when, which is kind of cool, to be honest. And each one of these characters represents one of the 5 races, and they also have one of the core basic classes, so you can sort of like mix and match to your heart's content. One of the cooler features is that at any point in battle, you can actually swap out one of the characters for another one and use them just like that. So you pretty much have 6 playable characters with you at any given time, even though your quote-unquote active party is only made up of 4 characters. So what does this mean? It means that everyone gets experience, which is awesome. Absolutely love that, and it makes level grinding much more manageable. I should also mention that you don't need to grind levels. You can just play through the game as you naturally would, and you'll tackle the battles that you would normally encounter, and you'll be good to go. You don't really need to grind. All enemies are seen on the screen, so don't worry, there's no random encounters here at all. Something that was also pulled over from Dragon Quest XI was the Draconian Challenges, or Trials. And these are basically just settings. If you feel like sort of playing like a hard mode, you can activate some of the challenges, such as like stronger enemies and things like that. Skills have also been completely changed in the offline version to match the dedicated party members. The system now works almost identically to Dragon Quest XI. The one interesting twist is that there are now empty slots in the skill grid that you can put upgrade tiles in to make the corresponding skills stronger. Another interesting little bit of information for you, much like in Dragon Quest XI, you can't change the appearance of your party members unless you create specific armor sets. But the ones I've messed around with do show a lot of variety, so I was happy with that. As for the protagonist, they actually work very much like they did in Dragon Quest IX, where every piece of gear you have shows up on your character. As far as the audiovisual presentation is concerned, Dragon Quest X features my favorite music from the entire series because it literally features the entire series' music. For this offline version, it naturally is one self-contained game, so it's only version 1, so none of the expansions are included, but the soundtrack still plays like a best of collection from the rest of the series, and I'm completely biased, of course, but I absolutely love it. There's also full voice acting now for almost the entire game except for side quests, which wasn't introduced into the series until version 5 of the online game, so I was pleasantly surprised by that. Not only that, but the protagonist has a voice this time around too, which is really surprising. One element that surprised me in a very bad way was the cinematics. I don't understand this at all. I mentioned that the original version of Dragon Quest X was released in 2012 on the Wii, a system that wasn't exactly known for being super powerful. Yet here, at least on the Switch version, which is what you're seeing, the cinematics look horrible. They're heavily pixelated, and there's this weird, bizarre, like, artifacting all over the place. There's even cinematic slowdown in places. Now, I understand that this game is using the Unreal Engine, whereas the original used an in-house engine from Square Enix, so I guess something happened with the conversion or optimization, but videos just look horribly compressed. And the in-game visuals don't look that much better, to be honest. They are incredibly janky. There's a brief pause during almost every single battle where you like prepare for your attack, and it just feels like the game wasn't optimized. And again, I'm specifically singling out the Switch version here because I have yet to try the other versions, the PS4, PC, or PS5 version. But I gotta be honest, I was very disappointed with just the way the game felt. I didn't mind the chibi graphics, like the style used for the characters, didn't mind it at all. It's actually really cute, but they don't keep this style for the in-game cinematics, which doesn't make any sense because the minute it goes to like FMV, it switches back to Dragon Quest X Online's FMV, but then you'll have in-game like cinematics with the chibi style. So it's really jarring because it like jumps all over the place. The in-game maps have also been slightly modified from the original versions to accommodate the offline nature of the game so that traveling's a little bit quicker. They're not quite as vast. And speaking of which, yes, the dollar board is back, and yes, there are different mounts or vehicles that you can use, whatever you prefer to call them. I like to call them mounts. But the good news is that there's no longer a need for gas, and they increase the speed significantly. You can also run while not on mounts, which is really cool. So some good improvements made there, some good quality of life stuff too. All the stuff with that was introduced later on in the series, where they like sort of pinpoint where you have to go for quests or missions and like circle areas and stuff. All of that is featured in here. That also makes it quite import friendly because you can just always find out where you have to go next. But here's something that they changed, and I don't know why they changed it. Camera control was the weirdest issue for this game. I don't understand. So in the online version, you have full camera control. You can move up, down, in, out, left, right, what have you. Here, you can only position the camera left and right in a circular motion around your character. That's it. There's no zooming in or out. There's no moving the camera up or down. So I don't really understand why they kept gestures in this version of the game, because you can almost never see them because your character is just so tiny. And I gotta be honest, I never got used to this, ever. I don't like this. I don't understand why they did this. This is a really poor change in my opinion. They really should have had full camera control. The artificial intelligence is classic Dragon Quest, meaning enemies will pull off goofy moves at bizarre times. Instead of killing off one of your low HP characters, they might just say like the enemy glances at you menacingly. In terms of your party, if you set the AI parameters to take control of your party, they pretty much do a good job. I mean, every now and then they'll pull a weird move, so just make sure for bosses that you set it to manual, but overall it's not bad. So much like the 3DS and PS4 versions of Dragon Quest XI, there is a spell of restoration that allows you to transfer your character from the offline version to the online version when you finish the game. But be warned, this is very much like that comparison I just made. So if you never played Dragon Quest XI on the 3DS and imported your character from the 3DS to the PS4 or vice versa, just know it doesn't know what items you have or what gold you have. It just basically knew where you were in the game-ish, and that was about it. So it was like, it's not a one-to-one transfer, and it's the same idea here. You're basically going to get a level 70 character with the same name and class, and that's about it. So be warned of that. So this brings up another important topic, and that is, what is missing from Dragon Quest X offline? And the answer is, well, all kinds of things. I've already mentioned a lot of the differences in this review, but the more obvious is that the game really truly exists, obviously, like I said, for those that, don't want to pay a monthly subscription fee, don't want to always be online, etc. But really, this game exists as a gateway to Dragon Quest X Online, and that's exactly what Square Enix is hoping for. They want that sweet, sweet subscription cash, y'all. So all social events are nowhere to be found here. You only have access to blacksmithing as a side gig. None of the other jobs are available, even though the guilds are still featured in the game. So I thought that was really funny. They're there really just to tease you more than anything. Sort of say, if you want the real deal, you gotta pay that monthly sub fee. And the same is true for user villages or like owning a home. If any of you have ever watched any of my Dragon Quest X Let's Play, you know that we almost always start at my house. All of that is not featured here, even though there's a map icon telling you, oh, go here for the village. It's kind of weird. Again, I think all of this was done to convince you to head online. And that's why this feels like a real scaled back version of the game, focusing just on the story elements, and that's pretty much it. The thing is, what makes Dragon Quest X so amazing and like the best of the series is everything else. It's not just the story. Yeah, the stories are great that are told here. They really are. But it's all the social elements. It's that endless nature and the customization. The fact that you can pretty much do anything within this world. Whereas Dragon Quest X offline feels like a watered down, almost unnecessary in a lot of different ways. If you don't know this, today you can download the trial version of Dragon Quest X online and play all of this content, everything you're seeing here, but you can play it with better graphics, friends, and the full Dragon Quest community. So why would you opt for this version instead of the real one? Well, the only answer I have, and the only reason why you would do this, is because you had no other choice. And the only way that that makes any sense to me is if this game were to be released outside of Japan. And if it were to be released outside of Japan, then this makes a lot of sense. Because we would only be interested in the story here. If you're never gonna release the online version, then this is the way to go. But then that brings us back to that very perplexing moment in the reveal trailer, not for international markets. And that's where I'm left scratching my head saying, then why exactly does this exist? If it exists solely as a gateway for other Japanese players to get into Dragon Quest X, oh, okay, I guess I can kind of see that. But a lot of effort did go into this game with it being on a new engine. So I don't know if I really buy that. Now, if you're curious, this game is just version 1. So it's the vanilla version of Dragon Quest X. Doesn't include any of the expansions. However, we do know that version 2, or the first expansion, will be coming to the offline version via DLC pack of sorts, and it promises to add another, well, I'd say around 25 hours or so to your adventure. Now, the thing is, when version 2 comes out in 2023, version 7 will be already announced for the online version. So again, it's one of these things where I'm like, I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this. So to wrap up this ridiculously long review, if you have no other way of playing Dragon Quest X, this version is serviceable. It is. But if you can experience the online version, that is by and far the way to experience Dragon Quest X, as it was designed to be played with a community. People outside Japan just want to experience Dragon Quest X, and I totally understand that. And this would do you well. It really would. It features a wonderful story. And I'm really happy that Square Enix did their best with the source material. But at the end of the day, honestly, if you're truly looking to play Dragon Quest X, online really is the way to go.